Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to keep it running today as normal. I'm got a lot of people dialing in from cell phones and all kinds of places, so I have muted the lines. To unmute the line, just so you guys know, it's *6 to unmute, and we will end right about 6 o'clock. I've got plenty to cover on some of the tools that I use when I'm out in the field to do a net sheet, and that might help some of you who are looking for maybe a better way or just maybe a different way if you've been doing net sheets. So I'm going to cover that today. There are a few things we'll go over. Just keep in mind that you have many options when it comes to title companies, and there's a lot of tools out there, but the best tool that you're going to the best tool out there is the one that you're going to use the most. So I've used for many years two of the tools, the MLS financial tools and then the Ticor Agent app. Those to me are two of my favorites when it comes to net sheets. And then I have the ability to either print or email or use that on the fly. So I'm going to kind of back it up and give you kind of a scenario. I walked Jerry Kay through the net sheet process, and it's been a while. She was at Windermere before joining Best Choice Realty last year. And so we went ahead and met with one of my sellers. It's a condo. In fact, Tyson with Timber Coast Construction. He also knows this client very well. And we did a CMA. So we did a cloud CMA. And then Jerry Kay watched me as I presented the net sheet. And she's like, wow, that was pretty easy the way you did it. So I'm going to kind of try to attempt to do that for you guys on the call so you can see where I kind of break in my presentation to go over the numbers. And then everybody seems to be willing to sign a listing contract because they know how much money they're going to net. And that's important for a seller to understand their net sheet, that we're not going to withhold that information from them. So I think I'll take it up for tonight's call on just doing a mock presentation for the part where I introduce the net sheet and how I do that. And I'm going to show you guys how I did it for this particular client, and then maybe show you for those clients who you're wanting to print it out for or discuss by email. There is an easy way to do that on the MLS. So I'll end with that part on the call tonight. If there's any point you have questions, if you don't mind just holding your questions to the very end, I'll maybe unmute the line and see if there's any questions after I get done. We only have 10 people on the call, so that's not too many that I can unmute. But I did mute you so I could get through this. And then we can discuss this more later if you have some personal situations where you're wanting to do this maybe differently than you have in the past. So let me jump into the cloud so I can show you where we left off with one of these. I'll just pull up a cloud CMA. Here's one right here. We'll view it. So if you don't have access to cloud CMA, I would be happy to give you my login and password so you can use this presentation tool. We also are in the process, Lori, our graphic designer, is putting the final touches on our new presentation. She's taken the presentation that was on the horizontal and placed it on the vertical, so that way we can use this to maybe start out our presentation and then go into the pricing. So she's making it easier to use by embedding it into Cloud CMA. So you should be able to, by next week, go in and build your CMA and use the listing presentation and then lead into the pricing. So we're gonna get to the very end of the pricing. There's a section on the end of the Cloud CMA that talks about the summary. Sold property analysis, which is a good one to go off of. This is one where if you looked at this sold property analysis, you see how people are getting pretty close to full price and on the market for 23 days. So I can talk very openly with my seller about the days on market and how usually at this point in the presentation, they ask, how long is it going to take to get it done? And I always have to say, well, as long as the condition matches the price, meaning as long as you do the things that we've talked about in the appointment to get the home on the market, it should stay on the market for about 23 days and should get close to the asking price. But we have to consider all of the comparables. And as we kind of look here, there's a range between the listing and the sold price. of being anywhere from, you could see some of my sold comparables ended up adjusting between 430, well, 445 all the way up to 490. So if you average those out, it's 460. You want to ask the seller at this point in time, are you still feeling as strongly as you were when we talked initially about the price that you told me on the phone? You told me on the phone you wanted to go at 490, but based on my analysis, it's looking like the highest anybody has received in this area is 490. And then the lowest, average is be about 460. So my range, if I was to guess on your home today, and again, it's a very educated guess, would be that your home would sell for approximately 460 to 480. The 490, when we adjusted that one, that ended up being about 480, and that's how I came up with that range, was between 460 to 480. Do you have any indication of what you'd want to list the home at? It's a trial close. They're like, not quite sure, Rochelle. What am I going to take away? They usually want to know more about how much they're going to net. If they start asking you more questions about the net or how much they're going to take away, as you're throwing numbers at them or ranges anywhere from 460 to 470, they're kind of hesitant to make a decision about where to list their home. That's when you want to introduce them to a net sheet. And there is one on my phone. So at that point in the conversation, when I have not got the yes, like, yes, I'm ready to list my home at this price or sign the contract, you'll want to go ahead and go through a calculator. I have this on my phone. All of the title and escrow companies have some sort of net sheet that they can help you with or provide you with. This one happens to be one that I've used since the very beginning. I don't necessarily use Ticor on every transaction or every listing, although Kristen Flood is a good rep. And we have a good rep at Ticor. It just happens to be the one app that I have on my phone that's, for me, easy to use. You can get yourself this similar looking app on your phone if you contacted one of the either Stewart, Ticor, Chicago, or Fidelity. They all have the same type of app because they're all owned by the same company. So if you want to reach out to, if you like the way this looks and you think you might want to try using this on your phone when you're in a listing appointment situation, that's who I would recommend is talking with one of the reps at Ticor, Chicago, Fidelity, or Stewart who has access to this type of app. Because this is what I ended up doing for that client. So I said, okay, you're a seller. Let's go ahead and put in what type of loan that we expect. Conventional is fine. The sales price, let's plug in $475 since you're wanting to know how much you're going to net. The broker fee, as we discussed in Pierce County, it's 2.5 and 2.5. So that's what we went ahead and did. So I knocked the broker fee to $5. The repairs, we talked about cleaning the place, which is about $575. That's all done. We talked about you paying Timber Coast Construction. They have a cleaning crew that can do that very quickly for you. You just have to sign their contract and then agree to pay that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that into my repairs. And also the septic needs to be pumped. So that's approximately, let's just say it's $700, and that's an estimate. And then the loan balance, how much do you owe on the place? You said you were, Rochelle, I told you we owed 180, but we actually owe 210. So I go ahead and just put that into there. And what is your interest rate? Most of the time they're going to tell me it's around 5.5, something like that. And then closing date, let's say that we're going to get this thing done. That's how I say it. We'll get this thing done, let's say in the end of maybe the beginning of September. Kind of put the closing date there. And that will kind of compute based on, and I have the app that has the calculator of Ticor's fees as well as the tax information dialed into this calculator. So that's why I say you do want to get it may have to pay like a nominal fee to get this to sync, but I think it's as close to the real numbers you're going to get. And that's why I like it so much. So I compute it. Again, I've not done this on my desktop, so this will be interesting. It's going to compute. Here we go. It looks this way on your phone as well. So it puts a nice little kind of net at close, $226,000. This is if their loan balance was $210 and prorated tax owed. And then it calculates the closing costs. If they want to drill down and go, gosh, that's a lot of closing costs. I didn't think I had to pay closing costs. They think closing costs mean the buyer's closing costs. That's where you might need to drill down in and kind of show them by clicking on the link here, how it factors in the title, the escrow, the sales tax, the document prep fee, the courtesy signing fee, the reconveyance fee, the title policy, the excise tax, and all of the miscellaneous things that we talked about, the repairs, the $700 was a septic, and the commission. So it's all inclusive, it's all encompassing. And I can tell them with confidence, because I've used this app many times, I compare this to the close of escrow, and it's not off by very much. If anything, maybe $100. And I'm very confident in saying that because it has all of the fees dialed in. So if you are going to get the app, there is a free app you can download on your iPhone or on your Android phone. I would recommend talking with one of the reps to get it dialed in on your phone. So it does take into account the title, the escrow fees based on the purchase price and based on this type of loan, as well as the taxes. It will calculate that appropriately when you do have the app that they install install for you. That's what I would recommend on the Ticor. So if I was working with the client that Jerry Kay and I met with, I said, how does that look to you? And you pause and you let the client, gosh, I got to talk with my wife. That's when they start throwing objections at you. I'm talking with my girlfriend. In this case, he wanted to discuss this with his girlfriend. And I said, well, what I can do for you is I can have this contract emailed over to you along with the net sheet that I have prepared. And that way you can go over the details with your significant other or your girlfriend. He's like, that would be great, Rochelle. Everything looks good. The only thing I need to talk with her about is whether the balance is going to work and if we need to maybe go closer to the 270, the 475 or 460 instead of 475. I don't want to overprice my home. Or some of them say, well, I want to see if we can get 490. Well, you can quickly just go in here and change that to 490. And that's what's really nice about this calculator, and it computes all of the numbers the same. So that's what I did with him when he was starting to waffle with me on the amount of closing costs and how that would work. Well, here's your net at close. Okay, so everything being the same, maybe we jump the price to 490 and try that for a couple weeks. Let's go ahead and, we can get that started if you'd like. I can market it at 490. You can talk with your fiance and discuss with her. Usually the first week or two, we get a lot of impact, and then we may need to adjust the price anyways. So again, you practice these trial closes with your seller, and you realize how important it is to have a net sheet or a calculator available right there on the fly for you. That nets them $240,812. At any point, I can go ahead and open the estimate, see the full report. I'll go ahead and show you the full report because that's what it would look like if I emailed this to my client. He would see a PDF that would look something like this, the net sheet. It's branded to me. It has my information. It even has a place for them to sign if they wanted to sign. But it also it talks about these are only an estimate, and there's some fine print here, but it puts it in a nice little sheet that I then attach to my paperwork so that I can have that discussion with my client if we do need to do a price reduction or we need to adjust something. Or I use the net sheet also when we're discussing multiple offers or when I'm discussing, here's the offer on the table, and I will print out a net sheet for them or use my calculator so that the seller understands what the adjustment that we had to make to accommodate that offer price. Maybe the offer came in at 460 and they were not asking for closing costs, or maybe they were asking for closing costs. I can go ahead and adjust this calculator to accommodate that request so that my client really is understanding all that's owed when it comes to the cost of selling their home. So I love this Ticor Agent 1. Like I said, it's the same type of look and feel for Chicago, Ticor, Fidelity, and Stewart. You just need to contact the rep to get their app on your phone. As I go through this, I don't want to dwell on too many things. Most people are they'll ask you questions about your commission. So this is be prepared for the commission explanation, or at that point, will you reduce your commission? Be prepared for that. That may come up as an objection. You'll need to know how to deal with that. You can adjust it if you needed to on the fly with this type of app. Or the other thing they ask about is the excise tax. That excise tax is very close. They'll probably have to make an adjustment to the app and 2020 when that law goes into effect, where excise tax may be different depending on the price, the purchase price. All in all, it's going to be very close to what we have already here. So if you're worried about that, don't overthink the excise tax. The excise tax will be in effect at a later time. So right there, it is 1.78%. It's been like that for as long as I can remember. So there is no negotiating on the excise tax. It's a big chunk of change that goes towards, goes to Washington State directly from the title and escrow company. People start to get, they question some of these larger fees, and then sometimes they'll bring up, well, the other agent didn't go over this with me, or they're thinking that. You want to step into the punch. If you're using a net sheet and using it really well, you can preface this before you even talk about the net sheet. Let me click over to the other one that I use, and I'll kind of show you how if somebody wants to incorporate a net sheet, there is a net sheet right in Financial Tools. If you are in the MLS, and you guys all have access to the MLS, if you don't have the tool, you can use a net sheet very simply by going to Financial Tools. I still will use this, and I found this to be very close to being actually on the little high side. I found the cost to be oftentimes less than this net sheet, and I don't know if that's because the title and escrow fees do a good job at reducing their rates or making sure that they fine-tune their estimates, but I found this to be a little bit on the high side, which is good for most of these net sheets. And you can put in the number, so let's put in 5,475. You have to select the county that you belong to and the closing date. We can check, put in September 24th, 2019. And you can put their name in here so it looks customized. Just put my name in there, and then you click load. And then this calculator has to be filled in. So this could be done before you go on a listing appointment. If you have one going on tomorrow or this weekend, you can certainly use the MLS Financial Tools. I still do. And you can plug in the numbers. See, I can adjust the numbers here, 2.5, 2.5. Maybe I'm going to go ahead and help them pay for, let's see, they're going to pay for the staging. Maybe they're going to pay for staging, which is going to be $1,500. Not 15,000. Gosh, that would be a nice, beautiful home if it was 15,000 in staging. And then the septic fee. Again, if you have a septic tank, there is a fee for pumping that septic tank. So don't forget to put that on your net sheets. But other than that, it's got the mortgage in there. Let's say it was $210,000. And let's say the interest rate was 5.5%. See how it calculated the prorated interest. And then let's say we wanted to pay for the buyer's closing costs, or maybe we're going to do a carpet allowance, a credit at closing of $5,000. I have a seller who's going to be doing that right now. So it just works out to be a credit to the buyer at closing. I factored all of the things in. As soon as I get done filling everything in, it pretty much put, oh, here's a home warranty. Maybe I want to throw a home warranty in, have them pay for the home warranty policy. I can have everything filled in. It's going to calculate. The only thing it doesn't calculate very well for you is the property tax unless you know it. In this case, it was like, I think it was $7,800 for property tax. And then you have to put the property tax in. You have to know what that total of King County assessed property tax would be in order for it to calculate what the prorated property tax would be. And you click calculate. And most of the time I don't put the property tax. I'll leave it out because I don't know. And I don't want to be off because it does look like it's going to not be calculating correctly. So as I'm just doing this here tonight, it does look like it's putting it improperly. It says prorated property tax. Let's calculate and see what this does. If I click on print, here's my printer friendly page. It puts our logo or our name of the company at the top. It puts our address. It says estimated seller's net, prepared on what date. The only thing I would say about this is make sure you print yourself out a copy as well as email yourself a copy, because sometimes I've forgotten that I've sent this and I've done sort of an adjustment, or we talked about closing costs. and I wish I would have had a copy to prove it, make sure you send yourself on the MLS, make sure you send yourself a copy as well as the client, or print yourself out a copy. Oftentimes I give this to my client and I forget that I forgot to print myself out a copy. So that's the only thing that I don't like on the net sheet. And also that I have to figure out the tax information, the property tax. It does say it's prorated property tax of $5,705, but I don't think that's correct. I think that's incorrect. So as you kind of look down the line here, this is again, this is an estimate based on the MLS, figuring out what general title and escrow fees would be. It's not going to be as accurate as if you use one of the title company's apps. But it does give you a range of what you can expect for title and escrow fees. It also has the buyer's loan costs, these special assessments. If you had an HOA, you would want to factor in the resale certificate. Resale certificates are approximately anywhere from $400. I saw a resale certificate of $575. So if your seller is selling a condominium project and you have to order a resale certificate in the contract, be sure you factor that into your net sheet, or at least let the seller know that's their cost. Otherwise, you may be paying for that out of your commission. Hate to have you pay that big expense when the seller really should be paying that. That is a seller's cost in the contract. Okay, and you have a bottom line here that talks about estimated net sheet. I've had agents do this net sheet and do like 3 different versions, have those ready to go. And then what they do is they talk about, when they get to that point, before they get to the close, they say, do you have any questions about the price? Seems to me like we have a range between $460 and $475. And then usually they kind of have this glazed look like, ooh, I don't know how much I'm going to walk away with. That's when the listing agent, a good listing agent, will pull out a net sheets and perhaps 2, one at $475 and maybe one at $460, to show the difference between the 2 price ranges. And they talk about, before they bring this out on the table, they tell the sellers, and this is what I've seen a lot of you guys do, and they do it really well. They say most agents will not provide a net sheet to their sellers when they take the listing appointment because they're too afraid of showing all the cost. I'm not the type of agent that's going to hide behind the numbers. I'm the type of agent that is going to give you communication along the way and provide you with all of the figures, albeit these are estimates. However, it's going to be very close to the actual, when you go to sign your final paperwork at the close of escrow, since you've given me the excise, we know the excise tax is fixed. We know the title and escrow fees may be slightly different. And we know that the commission is fixed. There's really no, I'm the type of agent that's going to negotiate on your behalf and get you as that number that you have right here. So if you tell me we're going to go at 475, or it's within my range that I've got here on my CMA, I'm going to fight really hard to make sure that we get you this net. I'm going to protect your equity. Use language like that that makes the seller understand what you're going to do for them, and how you get paid is when you bring them an offer. So you'll walk away from the deal here with $215,000 in your pocket, and I'm taking on all the phone calls, all of the marketing, all of the expenses to market the property and get you the best buyer and not have you have as much hassle. So we have 2 different options. We have the 460 and we have the 475, and here are the 2 differences. And then pause and let the seller kind of absorb the information. If they grab the information with both hands and they look at you and they say, Rochelle, we want you to take this job, you get their signature on the listing agreement and you're on your way. It's that easy. If you have a debate over commission, why not debate this now? Let's talk about this now and get the net sheet to work out and make sense so that they understand what you're getting for the price, that you're protecting their equity, that you're going to do everything you can to get them that net to be as high as that net can possibly be. So that's how really good listing agents, they use the net sheet at kind of as a closing tool so that they actually have a strong presentation and they button up their listing presentation in a way where they walk out the door with that listing signed, because they've taken the time to either do the calculation for that seller on the fly, or they close maybe by email, or like I did with Jerry Kay, I did it on the calculator and then he went ahead and signed the listing agreement electronically through AuthentiSign once he had time to go over the numbers with his girlfriend. And he knew, just because he had a copy of the net sheet, I didn't give him a copy of the CMA because the CMA had all my figures of how I came up with that price. Everybody can say that they're going to list their home for a certain price. My brother actually said it best, and I'll conclude with this. My brother said that some Keller Williams agent dropped by his house, saw that he's packing up his belongings to move to the East Coast, and they knocked on his door and said, "We can sell your house for $675." They hadn't even toured his home. They didn't even know. They just had sold one of the houses down the street. But he was very skeptical because this agent didn't have their facts and their figures. He did not trust them. And so I would leave you with that. If you're going to hide behind the numbers and not step into it and really go over this with your sellers, you may be missing out on some opportunities that you would have otherwise have had. He may have been willing to list his home with this Keller Williams agent. I don't think he would, because he knows me and he's been trained that he doesn't just go and sign something. But if that agent he would have been compelling if he said, "Here's why I think your home is worth $675," and he provided a full CMA and a net sheet showing what my brother would walk away with. He may have been tempted to list his home with that Keller Williams agent. But unfortunately, the Keller Williams agent decided just to hide behind the numbers and look for easy targets. So dig into it. If you want to practice using a net sheet, I'd be happy to watch you present and pick at your presentation a bit more. It is more of an advanced concept to introduce a net sheet, but I think that you can attract more sellers and more analytic sellers by using a net sheet and going over it with your sellers. So they understand how you're protecting their equity. And how you're helping them get the highest price possible for their property, utilizing the resources that we have available at Best Choice Realty. We have a lot of tools, you guys. We have construction people, staging companies, in-house staging companies, as well as construction companies that we use a lot, and cleaning companies and cleaning crews, and contractors that we have used before in the past. There's no reason why we can't get this listing contract signed by our sellers. And a lot of times they just don't understand the cost of doing all of these things. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me unmute the line and get any feedback or questions that you guys may have. Let's see here. Is there any other questions that you guys have? No, you guys, if you need to jump off.
Those are all those two.
Tyson, did you have anything to add?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
So in regards to what you're saying in regards to the contractor side of things, being able to net the client more money. A lot of times the biggest things that they need to do to the house in order to get top dollar is typical paint, carpet, and new fixtures. We pretty much do that and then take payment on escrow. I've landed listings before just by showing them that we can get them more money. So in your instance, in your scenario where 490 was the top, 490 might have been the top because all they needed was paint, carpet, and fixtures.
Right. Where 475 is probably more realistic of where we would need to start with.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Good thoughts, Tyson. I appreciate your input. Anybody else have a question or concern? I got a couple minutes.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Nancy. I did use this Northwest MLS solid net sheet, which I did like. I really appreciate how you also went over the part about
Hey, Dad, where did you put my iPad?
Sorry about that.
I didn't like have what repairs. I didn't plug that part in, but I like that you presented that tonight. That was a good tool to make sure you get all the fees in. I had the warranty and stuff in, but I like the extra cost that you put in there.
Are you serious? Are you serious, Mom? Very much. This year.
Somebody has to. There we go. Nancy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. So I got bits and pieces. Basically, you liked how we went through how to manipulate the net sheet and then present it to the seller.
Yeah, I had used that a couple times on listing appointments. The one you have up now, the Northwest MLS. One of the things I like that you pointed out tonight was how you also included the extra cost in there, like the septic and stuff and the repair fees.
Yeah.
And I noticed, like, when I went on my listing appointment, you know, I didn't know exactly at that time what repairs, but the good thing about it, like, even if you had the app card, like you said, you could just key it in right then.
Yeah, just key it right in. Yeah, and I turn when I present it, you guys, I actually turn it, like if I'm using my iPad, I'll turn it so that they can watch me actually plug in the numbers like an actual calculator. And they like that. They feel like they're in control of that type of system or that process. And I think that's great, Nancy, if you learned something today on that. That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else, Willie? Anybody else have questions or comments about tonight's call?
On my phone, I like that.
On your phone? Yeah, I think. Yeah. Do you have it on your phone?
I'm going to.
Yeah, I would say. Especially when you're working with investors or they're looking to try to, what's the quick number? What am I going to be able to take away? I think that's a great tool for investors too, to have it on your phone.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, hopefully this was helpful, you guys. I want to keep it brief and moving. Next week, we'll cover a new topic. I think we're going to be able to have the new listing presentation on the cloud. So I'll go through next week how to do that using the Cloud CMA and how to bundle it in the best way that I would do for my own listing presentations. So if you want to jump on next week, that's what I'm going to cover. Lori will have the new listing presentation, the pages, in such a way where you can basically build your listing presentation on Cloud CMA and have it ready to go. So you can kind of just go through as a PDF with your sellers, utilizing, many of you have already been through my Cloud CMA class and you know how to compile the data, but it would be so nice to be able to have it in just one PDF that we could go through very simply with the seller. So I love that Lori's changed up. She's got some new graphics and she's kind of cleaned up the presentation so it looks really, really good with the Cloud CMA. Some of the same content you guys are used to, I didn't change the content, it's just the way it looks and the way it handles while incorporating the pricing into the presentation. So I'm looking forward to using the new one myself. So I'll go over that next Monday with everybody on the call. Have a great day, you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right.